Watkins Glen is one of the great meccas of motorsport in the United States. It sits right alongside Indianapolis and Daytona as one of the home places of motorsports. Racing in this sleepy upstate New York town has been going on for almost 75 years, first starting on public road circuits that went through the town of Watkins Glen itself, and later moving to a purpose-built Grand Prix track in the late 50s. For 20 years, from 1961 through 1980, Formula One came to upstate New York in October when the leaves were changing and held the Great U.S. Grand Prix. IndyCar has raced sporadically at Watkins Glen over the years, and NASCAR, of course, holds their yearly race since the late 80s, but it's sports cars which really are the foundation of Watkins Glen. Starting back with those initial races in the 1940s and 50s on the public roads and moving to the Grand Prix course, sports car racing, and specifically the 6 hours of Watkins Glen, is the banner race of the circuit. And we're lucky today, where other great circuits such as Riverside and Bridgehampton have faded away, Watkins Glen remains the great racing circuit that it's always been. And finally, we can experience some of the original Grand Prix course updated for Assetto Corsa. This is Sergio Loro's brand new 1960s Watkins Glen circuit, the circuit that F1 originally started racing at in 1961. It was originally built, I believe, in 1956 and remained in this configuration through 1970. The original Grand Prix layout for Watkins Glen is quite a bit different from the courses today, but there are some key areas which really have not changed at all since the 1950s. The start-finish and pit straight at the classic circuit is located between turns 1 and 2 of the modern circuit today, but from there it heads up the same S's and down the same straightaway that the modern circuit does. At the far end of the circuit, the long straightaway meets the iconic loop corner. Nearly 180 degrees, this corner turns you around and sends you back towards the front straight. On the original Grand Prix circuit, there was no boot or extension, so the back straightaway sends you back towards the front stretch. And there's also no inner loop, of course, but there is an interesting chicane that leads into the loop corner. I think was used for certain types of racing. It's an alternate, really, to the loop that was installed much, much later in the early 90s. And heading down the back straightaway is where the major difference is from the short course that's run today by NASCAR. The back straightaway kind of lazily turns to the left and then heads right through Fast Bend, which is a very challenging corner, before sending you to the final turn called the 90. This turn is much tighter than the modern day turn 1 and requires quite a lot of work to slow down for, since you're coming through this lazy left-hander leading through the braking zone. This ending part of the course was changed, like I said, in 1970 to the more modern layout that we know today, with the pit start straight being relocated. And all in all, I actually really like the new layout of Watkins Glen. I think it's one of those circuits that they didn't really get rid of the character, only made it a bit better over time. But because racing was so important in Watkins Glen, it's great to have the circuit here in its original state. This track, of course, was included with Grand Prix Legends, as it was a circuit raced in the 1967 F1 season, and this is the first time I believe I've seen a new version of it since that Grand Prix Legends version. There are many conversions of the Grand Prix Legends version sitting out there on the net, but nobody has gone through to recreate it, and I'm not really sure why. If you look at other classic circuits such as Monza and Spa, they've had countless reproductions of the older versions for different sims, but for some reason Watkins Glen has been left off that list, and up until now I don't think I've seen another classic version made from scratch. So this is, like I said, a welcome addition to modern sims. I think it rounds out all 11 tracks for the 1967 season that mirror the ones released for Grand Prix Legends back in the day. I think Bugatti's coming as well, but for now we have an awesome version of Rouen. So I wanted to do a quick race to show off the track, let everybody know it exists, and maybe compare it a bit to other versions that have existed before. But I was originally going to use the 1960s F1 cars. It's an obvious choice, of course, but I thought I'd go with some classic sports cars, and I found this amazing Shelby Cobra 427. It was made by the Mecco, and it's quite an old mod for Assetto Corsa. I think it was released back in 2014 originally and hasn't been updated since 2015, but it's a really, really nice car. It fits this perfectly. Shelby Cobra has raced a lot at Watkins Glen. I was looking at some results from the mid-60s, I think 1964, where Ken Miles raced one in an SCCA race there. So it's a fitting car for the track, something a little bit different, and something that allows a nice open view for us to inspect how great this track really is. Alright, so here we are at the back of the grid, 10 laps around Watkins Glen, and it'll be a little bit of a slow start here with the AI. Lights are out. We'll just roll away from the line. We got a little bit of sorting out to do, but once we get going, they're pretty good actually. All right, and we'll head straight into the S's, of course, starting in a different location. And try to squeeze on the inside, and you'll notice right away how narrow this track is compared to modern versions of it. See if I can sneak up the outside. There's just enough room once we got onto the straightaways to go 2x2 in some areas or try to outbrake each other, but through a lot of the course, it's a single file circuit for sure. We'll come down to the loop. It's a third gear corner once we're really going at it. We'll put it into second for the first lap. Seems like everybody's behaving in front of me. Try to hang around the outside. Have to be super careful for the curbing here, especially coming out of the loop there on the left. Huge curbs on this circuit. Looks accurate compared to pictures I've seen, but man, they take some getting used to. But now we'll fly through this long left-hander. This is where the circuit's quite a bit different from the NASCAR course today. And come up to fast bend. Ooh, getting blocked a little bit there. Somebody locked up the brakes big in front of me. But through fast bend, second gear, we'll come down to the 90. This is a first gear corner for sure. All the way down. See if I can sneak it up the inside. Taking advantage a little bit. Not sure real folks would leave it that open. Oh, a little bit of oversteer onto the front straightaway, of course. And we'll come complete lap number 1 back into the S's. So this is a beautiful course. Sergio's done an amazing job on this. It feels familiar, but very different from the Grand Prix Legends version that I think we're all used to. The layout, of course, is the same, but the narrowness is one of the things that first jumped out to me. I think the Grand Prix Legends course is a fair deal wider, which is common with all of those tracks. Let's see if I can keep it on the inside of the loop. Oh, bump fenders in my pretty Cobra here. To get a good exit behind this nice red Cobra. It's a great looking car, great sounding car. Oh, side by side there. So sketchy on parts of the circuit to try to pass, but imagine doing 6 hours around here with multi-class cars. Not sure where you would be able to get around. A lot of give and take. Of course, racing back in these days is a bit different. You're not fighting for every single second. A lot of it's endurance. We'll come head up the hill. Sergio's chosen to model this circuit in a fall type condition, so the trees are turning color. All of the foliage is fading, and it's very beautiful. It makes sense since the F1 races and everything were held always in October in the fall. See some great pictures of the cars with the leaves in the background. Oh, we got that one car looking at me from behind. All right, we'll come down to the loop. Oh, he's going to outbrake me. That's impressive. You don't often see that with the AIs. And I want to squeeze it up the outside, but there's not a lot of room on the exit here. That curb, that's the most deadly one there to the left. You really can't touch it. All right, we'll get it down to second gear. Ooh, brake check a little bit. Come up to the 90 here. Oh, we got smoke in front. Is that car sliding into the pit lane maybe? Oh, we got one against the fence on the inside there. That's quite the way to end the race. So that end of the circuit is obviously the big change from how the track was later, and I think it was all a positive change. If you look at this circuit and the layout of it, to support bigger and bigger racing events, that tiny pit lane and ending complex just didn't quite make sense. Yeah, the driver's retired now. So they changed the location of the pit. They extended that straightaway a bit before the 90 degree. And all in all, the rest of the track is somewhat the same. So like I said in the intro, I actually like the modern circuit. It's one of those that the changes really didn't ruin any of the circuit, maybe even made it better in a couple ways, but it is very neat to see the true original Grand Prix circuit like it is here. Let's see if I can get on the inside of this green car. It's a little all over the track. Of course, 4-speed manual. There we go. Slow it down nice and early. Ooh, car in front running off. Wow. Such cool effects. I don't know what happened to him there. Just ran out of talent or broke something. We'll get it down to first gear though. Ooh. It looks like my mate there has retired. Will come 6 laps, so not too long of a race, but just enough to get a taste of this track. It's been wanted for so long, and it's really, really well done. Sergio's modeled it with a few optional things you can choose. I'm running on the bumpy version of the surface here, but he's also included a more smoothed out version, which I understand they did some paving work over the years too, so it's not entirely inaccurate. We'll see if I can get up the inside here. Oh, into the loop. Try not to lock it up. Dip it on the dirt a little bit. Oh. Slide it out wide. All right, not the cleanest corner. But this is the bumpy version of the circuit. It's got great track mesh. It's one of Sergio's best things. All his tracks, they just have so much character to them. There's no smooth sections. This very much as it would have been, I could imagine. He's also included different starting grid options. I raced here. The start you saw was with the sports car starting grid. There's also a Formula One starting grid and online grids that are a little more spaced out. Let's see if I can get around this car. Maybe into the S's, not sure. It's a little bit sketchy. There we go. Get up to third. A lot of torque in the low end in this car. Alright, we'll get it to fourth gear. Get a nice run on the car in front as well. Try not to overcook it this time into the loop. Locking up the wheels a bit, he's gonna pinch me. Try to line him up on the exits, braking quite late, got a weird line through there. Able to win out through the long left-hander here. Very easy to outbrake yourself here into the 90, but luckily, especially when you get brake checked like that, luckily there's some good runoff here too. Take full advantage of there. That helps if you run a little bit hot, but there's not a lot of margin for error here. You're going quite quick. It's a fast track for how small it is, and there's not a lot of runoff in many places. Also in this version, not a lot of barriers. Sergio said he's modeled it for the late 50s, early 60s, and by the late 60s they had installed some Armco through the S's as well as on the outside of some of these turns, so there's nothing to stop you if you go a little too fast off the track here, but very, very cool. Love tracks that have very little safety in them for simming. Oh, it's so slow here through the loop. There we go. Got nice acceleration, but we're really side by side. If I can keep it around the outside, coming into fast bend, I would turn it to the inside, of course. It's a great over-under type of circuit. Ooh, another car retiring. You can see a train of Cobras up there. We'll get that white one coming up on me now again. Just in the braking zones, they stop a little too much. It throws off the whole rhythm. 3 laps to go. Let's see if I can pick up at least this spot. Try to back up the exit here onto the straightaway. There we go on the inside. down to the loop, down to second gear. Ooh, there we go. Luckily got the line that time. Dance the wheel a bit on the exit. This car has great four-wheel drift. Being able to catch it. It's one I don't see a lot of folks use, I think simply because it's older, but it's still quite good. Content Manager did find a couple errors with the car, but it was able to fix those, and everything seems to have worked just fine from there. Come right up to the curb on the exit. This track feels good when you get it all right. Down to first gear. Oh, so I'm going to lock it up and miss there into the 90. Easier to do than it looks like. It actually was surprising at first. I was trying to get around this track in a few different cars. And it's not an easy circuit. There's a lot of bumps, and it's so narrow. You kind of have to know exactly where you're going and what you're doing. Oh, a lot of oversteer coming onto the straightaway. That's a scary place to slide the car. So this has done a couple things for me, seeing this in Assetto Corsa and rebuilt. Showed me there are some differences from the Grand Prix Legends version that we know, just with the narrowness of the track, the bumpiness of it. But it's also instilled some of my faith in the Grand Prix Legends circuits, because for 1998, this is not that much different than the Grand Prix Legends Watkins Glen. So they did a good job at building that circuit in that sim, but it is great to have a new version of it. I think the last couple of corners here are the biggest differences, especially the 90. This is quite a bit tighter than it is in Grand Prix Legends. All right, get it down to first gear. Finally get the apex for once. We'll come to the line. I think one more lap to go. So I'm excited to maybe do some online racing around this track, although because of how tight it is, it's going to be a difficult track for that, but also just as a track to round out any kind of seasons you want to do, especially of classic racing. It's a really, really good one. I'll get it down to third gear, down to second. Was going through third in this corner in practice, but just for the race, get in second. A little early on the apex there. Went up onto that curb on the exit. Luckily didn't spin out the car. I think I am catching the cars in front, but a little, too late. Negotiate the last couple of corners here. Through the 90 and complete the short race here at classic Watkins Glen. So what's not to like? One of the best classic circuits in America, done in stunning detail. Sergio's really done a great job on this, and it's a great track to race on. Great to see it rendered finally in more detail. The detail around the circuit itself with all the objects and everything creates a great atmosphere. In the pit lane, he's actually got some of the audio of an announcer speaking that adds a lot to it. So clearly a track made with a lot of care, and I recommend going to pick it up. It is a free track. He's not charging any money for this, but you can donate, and if you really like it, if you like Sergio's work, I recommend donating. I know he's got a few things in the pipeline that are even more old than this and will be quite exciting to take a look at. So very excited to see what comes out of that shop. It continues to be some of the best tracks in general for the sim. So hope you enjoyed this one. It's a quick race, some fun cars on a fun track, nothing too crazy for a Saturday, but thank you for watching. Got more of this to come in the future very soon. It's almost hard to keep up with all the stuff coming out these days, but so many good classic cars and tracks, it feels like it's all catching on finally or something. But until then, I'll see you all later. Have a good one.